Hi, welcome to the Little Garden's Homestyle text class of A Course in Miracles. Grab your book and read along with us.
So what are we doing today, dear?
Today we are in A Course in Miracles, Chapter 5, Section 3, The Guide to Salvation. And it's on page 78.
Do you want to share a little bit of our recent practice of taking Saturdays as a...
Yeah, this might be something you all might like to do. Like, this is not a new idea, but it's new for us. And we have been taking Saturdays as a Sabbath. We have a meal together at night on Friday. Mm-hmm. We're not Jewish, but hey, it's a great idea. And then Saturday, we each go to our own spaces and we spend it in quiet, in prayer. We don't do our emails and our phone calls and all that on Saturday. We just get really quiet, and it's really wonderful.
So functionally speaking, practically speaking, what we're saying is, to normal times, we have jobs we have to do, things we have to accomplish, whatever, take out the garbage, but what we're saying on a Sabbath day is we're putting God first.
Yeah.
We're resting from the accomplishments. It doesn't mean we're not doing anything, obviously, but we're resting our minds from the accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And so that's worked really well. And the other thing that we're doing along with that, which is every day, is we've been working on this idea of date. There's a psychologist that
John Gottman, Gottman.
He's got a way for couples to keep the romance and the love alive for anyway.
But it's not the silly romance. It's the real connection.
So what I was going to say about that is what he's saying is, just like the Course is saying, is that each of us have a fundamental mission in life, things we were born to do. We're part of God's plan. And by honoring each other's distinct functions is how we build intimacy and therefore trust. And therefore we can share with each other on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've seen, just to bring it into what we're studying today, is that this normal, we may have overlooked some of the normal discussions in marriage because we have a holy relationship kind of thing. And now we're bringing all that stuff up.
Would we call it spiritual bypass?
Well, I don't want to condemn it, but I'm just saying we're trying to reach deeper in our communication with each other to build that trust of understanding. Like the first sentence in this section we're going to read is that I recognize my brother, my sisters, as a representation of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. That's how I relate to others, is through the Holy Spirit. And if I see something else, that's what I'm making up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So we're having a double dip of deepening our Course experience by changing our habits, our daily routine a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the love and romance ain't bad either.
Yeah. That's the news from the little garden. Okay. So today we're doing the Guide to Salvation. Let's have Kathy start the reading. And Kathy, just break in at any point and comment in any way you want.
Okay. The Guide to Salvation. The way to recognize your brother is by recognizing the Holy Spirit in him. I have already said that the Holy Spirit is the bridge for the transfer of perception to knowledge, so we can use the terms as if they were related, because in his mind they are. This relationship must be in his mind, because unless it were, the separation between the two ways of thinking would not be open to healing. He is part of the Holy Trinity, because his mind is partly yours and also partly God's. This needs clarification, not in statement, but in experience. So the way that we join with our brothers is pretty much not dealing with the ego in him. It's recognizing the Holy Spirit.
Perfect. Yeah. We had discussion about what does this mean? The Holy Spirit is the bridge for the transfer of perception to knowledge, and then he goes on about that. But how I'm seeing, as Kathy was reading, it occurred to me that what he's saying here is the Holy Spirit knows who we are, but he's going to help us have the perception of who our brother is. That would be one way of understanding this.
Part of this came up when we're doing these set of lessons where I'm under no laws but God's, which is to say that this love of forgiveness is this ability for us to freely choose the Holy Spirit instead of the ego's thought system.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same power that is our true power of creating.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not separate from that power of love when we're
Mm-hmm.
forgiving, even though we're correcting something. There's nothing to correct in truth. There's no opposite
Right.
to truth. But here we're correcting the wrong-mindedness with right-mindedness, but it's the same love.
Yeah.
And so he's in these lessons, he's trying to get us to build this confidence,
Mm-hmm.
this certainty that we have the answer to all our problems. But we have to define those problems as we think we've separated from our true self. We think we're separate from love.
So you're talking about the lessons that we did
Yeah.
today and yesterday.
That's how I'm relating it to.
Mhm.
So the two ways of thinking.
So that would be 79 and 80, by the way.
Yeah. So the two ways of thinking that he's talking about here, in what sentence is that? No, this one right here.
Two ways of thinking, perception and knowledge.
Yeah, but it's what sentence? 3? Is that what it says?
Yeah.
So that's a split mind.
Yeah.
And we're encouraged to have the confidence that our split mind has been healed already. And so the last sentence is the kicker. He can state this, we can put it in concepts, but it's an experience.
Right.
Like we do these practices, but what we're trying to get is this experience. Oh, I can be at peace even though the world seems to be falling apart.
Mm-hmm. Well, next paragraph helps with that. But anybody want to make a comment further on paragraph 1? Anything that stood out for you? Okay, let's have Eric go on to 2.
Okay. The Holy Spirit is the idea of healing. Being thought, the idea gains as it is shared. Being the core for God, it is also the idea of God. Since you are part of God, it is also the idea of yourself, as of all his creations. The idea of the Holy Spirit shares the property of other ideas because it follows the laws of the universe of which it is a part. It is strengthened by being given away. It increases in you as you give it to your brother. Your brother does not have to be aware of the Holy Spirit in himself or in you for this miracle to occur. He may have dissociated the call for God just as you have. This dissociation is healed in both of you as you become aware of the call for God in him and thus acknowledge its being. So what immediately stands out is sentence 6 and 7. It is strengthened by being given away. It increases in you as you give it to your brother. So even if I feel like, well, I don't really know much about the Holy Spirit, I've just got this sort of intuition that there's something greater than me and it's leading me somehow. Just by sharing that, it's increasing it within me.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we can get it to increase, really, isn't it? By doing that.
Yeah.
which is sort of unlike anything else really in the world, isn't it? You can study to gain a knowledge and a deeper understanding of anything really, without really having to join with another person and to get that information. But this is different. The Holy Spirit, you can only get it by sharing it and that joining. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Anyone else?
I think this could really speak last. I'll just give them time.
What about from sentence 8 on?
You know, this whole paragraph, sentence 8 as well, it just, I don't know, it's the first thought that came to my mind as Eric was reading was magic. It's like as if I just let go and be with Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is everywhere in my brother and in everything. And I don't know, it's like I don't have words for it. That's what it's like.
Wow. Right on, though.
Miraculous.
Miraculous, yep.
I like to think of, in that last part, my brother may have dissociated the call for God. He may be angry and hurt and attacking, not at all aware that he's calling for God. But if I can be aware that those expressions are his call for God,
Yeah.
it strengthens the Holy Spirit in him as well as in me. And those are the people who really need it.
Mhm.
Well, we all do.
Right. But it would be a whole, if all we were doing was, dealing with perfect people, no seeming problems,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be much of a challenge. But, he began this chapter with this central idea that lets us see there is no loss of love. And that central idea is that when you give ideas away, you don't lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what breaks the sense of loss even in our relationships, where it seems like love, when there's dissension and conflict and all, and it seems like love is gone, right? That's at the moment when we can realize that I'm not giving time or just material things or that kind of help. I'm giving of myself,
True self.
my true identity to that situation. And then whatever miracles the Holy Spirit gives
Yeah.
is what comes, like he said, I'm among the ministers of God. The miracle is meant first for you.
Yeah.
So you're in a place of
Yeah.
healed as you offer that forgiveness and love to others.
Exactly.
And then the idea grows and gets bigger in our mind if somebody accepts that.
Right.
So that just absolutely cancels the laws of the world. Because if I give, a material thing away, it's seemingly gone from me. So this whole idea of giving ideas and not losing, love or peace or joy is really important, because it's centered on, God's an idea. I can give that idea away without losing it. I'm an idea. I can give that away without losing it. I mean, that is so central to the Course's, showing us, proving, like he said in that last sentence of the first paragraph, there's, we can talk about this, we can use the concept, but we need this experience of peace, even though the world still seems to be burning.
Yeah.
We have peace when we recognize it's ideas that we're giving away.
And right along with that is something that I saw. Yeah, here it is. Sentence 5. The idea of the Holy Spirit shares the property of other ideas because it follows the laws of the universe of which it is a part And that made me think about how in mathematics, there's more than one universe, there's more than one infinity, right? I mean, you can have an infinity of whole numbers, you can have an infinity of fractions. The universe of which the Holy Spirit is a part is the heavenly universe. He's a part of that, and he's a part of the universe of the ego as well.
The perceptual
realm.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I always like the idea of the real world and heaven being like realms.
Yeah.
Or, different states of mind that we can travel to and live in.
Different laws. And they're God's laws. See, what Connie said about magic is perfect. Because that's what he's saying. We think magic is. We make up something we think is valuable to give us a kind of ego idea. And then we think of ways to make that identity be fulfilled. But it's just magic. It's just this idea that we could change who we are and set up a whole nother universe.
Okay. So I think she was talking about miracles. She wasn't talking about the Course's type of magic. Yeah.
Well, what I heard was what we think is causation here is really magic.
Okay. Let's go to Connie with 3.
There are 2 diametrically opposed ways of seeing your brother. They must both be in your mind because you are the perceiver. They must also be in his because you are perceiving him. See him through the Holy Spirit in his mind, and you will recognize him in yours. What you acknowledge in your brother, you are acknowledging in yourself, and what you share, you strengthen. Well, we're all one.
Yeah.
I was just thinking in that last paragraph of a situation that occurred, and I was with 2 other people. They're actually my kids, who are very different from each other. And the conversation, and it was like one kid is like confused because the way the other kid communicates or doesn't communicate, he can't relate to, so, and it looks like he's trying to figure it out. And my thought was, it's like we're all one. It doesn't matter how that body is acting. Below it all, we're all connected and we're all one.
Beautiful.
But trying to explain that to a 40-year-old is a little bit challenging.
I like the analogy of islands. It appears that islands are separate, but if you drain the water away, if you subtract the water, it's just different high points along the continuum.
Right.
I like sentence 4 here, and I use this. See him through the Holy Spirit in his mind. So when I'm, especially when I'm challenged, I ask the Holy Spirit, the one I'm connected with, the part I'm connected with, I ask Holy Spirit to show me how he sees that person from the inside. The Holy Spirit in him, how the Holy Spirit sees him from within him. And at least it opens my mind, to let go of my version, my judgments of what that person is all about. Anything else on that, or anything else we've read so far? Laura, would you read the next one, please?
Surely. The voice of the Holy Spirit is weak in you. That is why you must share it. It must be increased in strength before you can hear it. It is impossible to hear it in yourself while it is so weak in your mind. It is not weak in itself, but it is limited by your unwillingness to hear it. If you make the mistake of looking for the Holy Spirit in yourself alone, your thoughts, it will frighten you, because by adopting the ego's viewpoint, you are undertaking an ego alien journey with the ego as guide. This is bound to produce fear. So the first part, I think, is pretty clear. That radio signal isn't too strong, so we need to put our antennas together, I guess.
Good.
But this piece about, if we make the mistake of looking for the Holy Spirit in yourself alone, your thoughts will frighten you, because that's really only the ego's viewpoint.
Yeah.
So essentially, all the fragments must come together as one. And if I sit in a room and try and do it by myself, who knows what's going on in there. I mean, it's not really the connection. So this is building on, your brother is your salvation. You cannot do this alone. And you cannot go home until everyone is together, like all the fragments come back together.
Yeah. That's really well said. The idea that we can't go home alone until everybody is back home in God in heaven can seem frightening to the ego, however. So I'm just going to put in the reminder that there is the real world, or the true perception, that we get to when we do this work, which means our lives become full of miracles. And so it's really okay. It's more than okay. It's wonderful to be a light in the world. When that is our only function, that is just a beautiful, glorious experience. We're helping others. But like Timothy just said, the miracle comes first to us as we share it.
Yeah, I mean, what's the difference between, because the ego is all about forgiveness too. It has to, the ego wants its little world where it's just about itself, its enjoyment, its pains. And that's, like it says, this is going to produce fear. So it has to do something about the guilt. So the ego is all about forgiveness too. But the difference between the ego's forgiveness and the Holy Spirit's is what?
Projection.
Yep. And the difference is that forgiveness in the Holy Spirit is for both of you.
Yeah.
It's not just for you.
Right.
That's the demarcation where we go into this other way of thinking. It's not. So, who's ever acting out in whatever ways they're acting out, we're all entitled, regardless of who's the victim or the victimizer, we're all entitled to forgiveness.
Right.
And that's what brings us, even just having the faith of that, just having that faith can give us peace.
Right. I really love that whole idea of we need our brother, and the Holy Spirit is the bridge. It explains why we can't do it alone. We have to get to the bridge, and the bridge leads to something. Right? It leads to the true perception of my brother and myself. It leads to from false perception to true perception, from perception eventually to knowledge.
Right. So the neediness of the ego, its neediness is the Holy Spirit translates that and says, okay, yeah, you have a need, but it's for the atonement, not for your brother to change.
Right.
Or necessarily change in any way.
Yeah.
You need the atonement. And so that it's just, that to me is what's so loving about the Course. It's just like the Chinese word of adversity and opportunity, the same situation.
Sorry.
It's okay. We love your dogs.
Yeah. Same situation in which I can make another outcome.
Yeah. you want to read 5, honey?
Delay is of the ego because time is its concept. Both time and delay are meaningless in eternity. I've said before that the Holy Spirit is God's answer to the ego. Everything of which the Holy Spirit reminds you is in direct opposition to the ego's notions, because true and false perceptions are themselves opposed. The Holy Spirit has the task of undoing what the ego has made. He undoes it at the same level on which the ego operates, or the mind would be unable to understand the change. So notice the integrity of the development of the concepts just in this section, right? He's saying this 2 ways of thinking has to be in the Holy Spirit, right? Because
Perception and knowledge.
well, these 2 ways of thinking, he's aware of what those are, right?
Yeah.
And so this same situation where, I mean, in truth, there's no opposite to truth. That's the basic idea of knowledge. But since we think we made a will that opposes God, we live in a world of opposition. Everything is in conflict with me, right? That's the belief of the ego. And I have to find a way to solve that conflict. And like it says in that lesson, the role you've assigned to your mind is what can change other than your mind so you're okay.
Right.
I mean, that's what the ego's doing.
Right.
And it's a simple change of mind.
You know, that is so important. What can change other than my mind so that I'm okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
The ego,
That's what, whenever we're thinking with ego, that's what we're doing.
and it convinces, I mean, why else
Yeah.
would we identify with the ego unless we think there was value in it?
Yeah.
And that's uncovering that the only value of the guilt is that's the only gift the ego is going to give is guilt.
Yeah.
It has to produce fear when you're just thinking about yourself, because there is no such thing as myself alone separate from everything.
Right.
That's
Even in this world.
That's not real.
Yeah. Any other insights you've gotten from this paragraph?
Or anything.
Sentence 6. He undoes at the same level on which the ego operates,
Yeah.
or the mind would be unable to understand the change.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, that is very comforting to me, you know?
Yep. It's still going to be perception. We're still going to see bodies. Time is still going to go on.
In relation to that, the previous paragraph, he's talking about you're undertaking an ego alien journey with the ego as guide. So the ego's, if you look into the ego to show you the way in this journey, then it's just going to keep taking you around the houses and never showing you what you want.
Right.
Whereas this paragraph, what does it say? The Holy Spirit's the task of undoing what the ego's made and then showing you so that you understand the change. So you're going to realize that actually, something makes sense now. It's sort of, I seem to be going somewhere now rather than just going around in circles.
Yeah, isn't it great?
That was what was so cool about these lessons recently, where it's like there's a celebration.
Yeah.
We have a celebration. You're under no laws but God.
Yeah.
All your problems have been solved. You're just becoming aware of that.
Yeah.
It's nothing you have to do. It's what you have to accept.
Right.
So all that frantic striving, and how am I going to solve this? And what, all these seems impossible to change. No, my mind can change it.
Yeah. Thank God.
And thank you for doing this work.
I'm grateful for you and for all of us.
Yeah.
So you just read, didn't you?
Kathy. Didn't Kathy just read?
Who just read?
I think Timothy did, didn't he?
Maybe you're right. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm going to be 70 years old this year.
No excuses.
What do I know?
All right, I'll read 6. I have repeatedly emphasized that one level of the mind is not understandable to another. So it is with the ego and the Holy Spirit, with time and eternity. Eternity is an idea of God, so the Holy Spirit understands it perfectly. Time is a belief of the ego. So the lower mind, which is the ego's domain, accepts it, time, without question. The only aspect of time that is eternal is now. So he's talking about what the Course calls the holy instant. Right now, there's a window into eternity. We have the illusion that there's past, present, future, and we're only concerned, most of the time, our minds are concerned with one or the other, not with this moment. But in this moment, when we're quiet, we can, the mind stops making up its story, and we can accept a little window into eternity. That's what I get out of that paragraph. Anyone else?
You know, this reminds me, years ago, I struggled with the Course, and from other work I've done, what I've gotten is that the ego, because the ego is the way the ego is because the ego was developed in childhood from mostly the past experiences. So the ego functions at a very young level. And most challenges that come from my ego are related to decisions or stories that I made up at a very young age when something happened, and I lived my life through that. So I find it helpful to look at my ego that way, or when things come up like fear is always present in lots of ways in life, and it's always related to some ego thing that's made up, rather than being with the whole, the eternal now.
Lovely.
We're already home.
I never thought of it in quite that way. So thank you. That was a great insight.
Part of this marriage work that we're doing is they're encouraging us to hear from the others what the past was like for them.
Yeah.
And to be able to have empathy for them, to be able to relate to them in that situation, like meet them with love. Like, oh, I see, this is stuff that, and she's absolutely, if I'm 10 years old, 5 years is half my life.
Yeah, right.
Time changes. And those first experiences seem to be so deep.
Right.
And if we understand ourselves in that way, because I often say what she's just saying, I'm not a little kid anymore.
Yeah.
This memory keeps coming up, but I'm a growing man.
Yeah.
I'm not powerless like a child anymore.
Right.
I have what it takes to heal this idea right now.
Yeah. I know, we've been talking about the lessons, the last couple of lessons. So 79 is let me recognize
the problem
so that it can be solved. And today's is let me recognize the problem has been solved. And in years past, what I recognized was a very, very old idea in doing these lessons. And that was a birth idea. Nobody cares. I'm all alone, going all the way back to the origin of my physical life. And those ideas carry through as a foundation until we really look at them, But Connie, I really like your idea and what you shared as well, the young person's version of that, maybe it's like authority figures don't care for me or, whatever it is.
Whatever.
But looking at that and saying, yeah, but that's obsolete. I don't need to hold on to that anymore. Yeah. Great.
Just Just so you know, philosophers aren't totally nerdy, because this can be a juicy thing to hang on to. Augustine, he was the first church father, Catholic philosophy. He realized at like this time in eternity, he realized that if there's this eternity, that time really doesn't make sense. And if there's a God all loving, sin doesn't make sense. That you've got to be healed already. But then he reasoned that the average person would not be able to understand that. So they decided to speak to the people as if they're the fallen. And that's what's obsolete today.
Okay.
Right? Think of the power that human beings have as opposed to what they had back then.
And we have, because of this course, we have, and other things, we have the ability to break through old thinking.
That's it.
All right. So
Jen,
yeah.
Sorry, I just had a thought, and I don't think it's fully developed, but I just want to throw it out there because maybe you can help me. I just had a thought that anything that you can be or experience or have now is real, and that things from the past and the future are not, right? So I was thinking, as Timothy often says, that love doesn't make you wait. You have access to everything you need now. But I feel like it might be close to something, like I'm missing part of that. Is that fair to say that? I guess you could also have negative emotions now too. But I guess I was trying to get to the real, like from the time perspective, I guess, right? Because the past and future are not real. It's only now.
Yeah, we can see that if we really think about it. Connie has an answer.
I would add to that, though, that some of the past is in your body. It's in my body. There's body memory. And so I think there are other levels that we're not really aware of where the past exists.
So what the Course says is real is that which is changeless. So, even in the very present moment where I'm paying attention to this glass very, very fully, the glass isn't more real. What is real is love and all the qualities of God.
See, this is why he's saying here, this has to be straightened out in experience.
Yeah.
Because we can take the concept only so far. They can only bring us to a point where we say, I'm ready for a new experience. Let me change my concept of time and recognize that the present moment is really the only useful sense of time right now.
Yeah.
That's why he gives us something like remembering and forgetting seems to be opposite concept. But if we forget everything that was unlike love, and these deeper ones, like that are body memories, those deeper ones, that's when we feel like it's impossible to change this. It's like I'm hopelessly stuck here. No, I'm in the present moment. That, practically speaking, is the only time that I need to use. But it's hard. That's why we need the experience.
Practice. Yeah. I think also how I get the experience of that is if I'm upset, then let's say I'm upset with you. If I go like right this second, what's going on? Then I can see I've got lots of thoughts from the past. I got lots of worries from the future. What this all means, I can say, oh, right now, I'm running around in the past and the future. No, let me be with the Holy Spirit now, right? Well, how does the Holy Spirit see this person?
And my job, and this actually happened to me, I was like 3.5 or 4, and my mother was coming after me with a rope, and she was going to like kill me with it. She literally was trying to do that. And I must have totally freaked out because she stopped and dropped that thing and she gave me a hug. But that scared the living shit out of me. So when you're doing your stuff on me, I got to remember, that's not my mom. I'm not a little child anymore, hopelessly stuck.
Yeah.
But I have to do my part.
So, what you're bringing up is how helpful it is to look at the past and our ideas of the future with the Holy Spirit.
That's it.
That's how we get freed
Yep.
So that right now we're as God created us.
So there's no merit to this psychological idea that you're not, you're not really looking at things. They said in New York, unless you're enraged, you're not making sense.
They would say like about, some terrible thing happens in the news and it would be like, you have to be enraged, like as if rage is helpful.
Yeah, right.
Anger will solve it. Yeah, right. No.
You're getting upset will make it better.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay, so Kathy, would you read 7, please?
No.
Kathy.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. 7?
Yep.
Okay. The Holy Spirit is the mediator between the interpretations of the ego and the knowledge of the Spirit. His ability to deal with symbols enables him to work with the ego's belief in its own language. His ability to deal with symbols enables him to work with the ego's belief in its own language. Okay. His ability to look beyond symbols into eternity enables him to understand the laws of God for which he speaks. He can, he's the interpreter. He can therefore perform the function of reinterpreting what the ego makes, not by destruction, but by understanding. God, that is so huge. Understanding is light, and light leads to knowledge. The Holy Spirit is light because he is in you, who are light. But you yourself do not know this. It is therefore the task of the Holy Spirit to reinterpret you on behalf of God. So if we let him, he'll bring us back to the knowledge of the Spirit.
Exactly.
And he understands what the ego is talking about. So he's able to use the ego symbols to teach us the upside down thinking we got going on.
Right on.
And you are the light of the world.
Understanding is light, and light leads to knowledge. So when you're upset about something and you realize, you're asking the Holy Spirit for a little wisdom here, and declaring your willingness, at least that's what I do, declaring your willingness to hear. Yeah. It's like all of a sudden when it starts to come in, it's like it feels light. It just feels light and expansive.
I know.
Great. Those are the kind of experiences that really teach us. Any other thoughts on that, on 7?
This whole thing about reinterpreting by the Holy Spirit, and it can feel like, well, it seems to be doing it very, very slowly. But I was reading in the teacher's manual, it's talking about the characteristics of teachers of God. And one of them is patience. And the last bit of it says, patience is natural to those who trust. Sure of the ultimate interpretation of all things in time, no outcome already seen or yet to come can cause them fear. So it's this ultimate interpretation that the Holy Spirit is bringing about, and having the confidence that it's going to happen. And so we can be patient because we know it's going to happen. We don't have to be like, well, how long is it going to take? Or, is it really going to happen? Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
So notice how in this paragraph, he's really developing this idea in the first one. In 1:3, this relationship must be in his mind because unless it were, the separation between the two ways of thinking would not be open to healing, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's either the ego's thought system or the Holy Spirit's. And when I put it down in those binary choices,
Mhm,
it's either innocence or guilt, love or fear.
mhm. Holy
know,
Spirit or ego.
I have the solution that receiving and giving is one. It's
Yep.
the same thing. Forgetting and remembering is the same thing. If I forget all that was on. So it gives us a very practical way right here
Mhm,
to find the peace right now.
mhm.
That's been so much in this last year of such a value. It's like saying, I can have this peace.
Yeah,
That's what I really want in this situation.
Right.
I don't want to necessarily get my way or accomplish things the way I just want peace.
right.
You know?
Yeah. And you're entitled to peace.
All
because of
we
who
are
you are.
saying is give peace a chance.
That's right. That's right. Let's see. It is Eric's turn. 8.
You cannot understand yourself alone. This is because you have no meaning apart from your rightful place in the sonship, and the rightful place of the sonship is God. I think we've got to stop there, really. You've got no meaning. As an individual, you're meaningless.
Yeah.
So do I really want to believe that?
Great question.
Part of me does, part of me doesn't, of course, because it's a split mind. So this is your life, your eternity, and yourself. It is of this that the Holy Spirit reminds you. It is this that the Holy Spirit sees. This vision frightens the ego because it is so calm. Peace is the ego's greatest enemy because, according to its interpretation of reality, war is the guarantee of its survival. So it's terrified of peace, of calm. The ego becomes strong in strife. If you believe there is strife, you will react viciously because the idea of danger has entered your mind. The idea itself is an appeal to the ego. The Holy Spirit is as vigilant as the ego to the call of danger, opposing it with his strength, just as the ego welcomes it. The Holy Spirit counters this welcome by welcoming peace. Eternity and peace are closely related, as are time and war. Yeah, the idea that danger has entered your mind. And that's an appeal to the ego. So really we're at peace and there's no danger, but the ego is just trying to always beckon this idea of danger in to make us afraid.
And something you brought up earlier about that belief in individuality, that was really helpful to me in understanding how this section works together. So what it's saying is that we really are one. Holy Spirit is the bridge between what appears to be individuals, and we are one self, united with our Creator, united with every aspect of creation. But the ego wants us to think of ourselves as individuals. And so it brings up the idea of opposition and war from without, attack from without, and attack back. So we can see that our idea of our individual self as being the self, the true self, as if the true self can be found in this one alone. You know, it's a mistake. The true self can only be found in the joining of the sonship.
Do you remember the pep fests that
No.
they used to have in high school? They'd
I
have,
hated them.
well, I know, but they used to have these pep fests for the student body before the next big game,
Yeah, we call them pep rallies.
or pep rallies or whatever. And it's like, build up the emotion and we're going to force,
And we're gonna fight.
we're going to fight and force all of that. It's like,
The other
we
team-
build up that emotion inside of ourselves,
Yeah.
the anxiety, and I'm going to overcome that anxiety.
Right. And then there's the false joining that is our team against your team, right? And
Yeah.
still just a bigger ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just this, like, we think we need this conflict to make us strong.
Yeah.
Like, I can come up against
Yeah.
this and I will prevail.
Yeah. The ego becomes strong in strife.
Right. But if I realize that our peace, our salvation is mutual,
Mm-hmm.
that it's really the same,
Right.
then I'm not going to be afraid of giving that peace away.
That's right.
And that's how I become aware of it.
Yeah.
Like he's saying, when you give it away, it becomes bigger
Yeah.
within you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the experience. I mean, why else would we be doing this 40 years later unless we had changed our mind? Maybe the world didn't change, but we felt peace.
Yeah. I feel much more peace. Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. That was a really good set of comments on that
Yeah, really.
on that paragraph. I'm really enjoying this study today. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention that occurred to me as we were reading it, how the ego becomes strong in strife and the Holy Spirit really is calm and brings peace, is that in chapter 19, the obstacles to peace, it says that the desire to get rid of peace is the first obstacle that the ego that we encounter. And what that looks like is a desire for drama and worry, and I've got to pay attention to this, then I'll get to you, God. You know, this thing here is a threat, and I better pay attention to it and settle that before I can have peace. But that goes on and on and on, and it never stops until we stop and say, nope, right now, Holy Spirit, help me.
You know, to me, that's what's so loving about the Course, is it just sets down this standard, like peace is possible for you.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're going to be dealing with your everyday situations. That's okay. But like at the beginning of the workbook, just find a little time for God
Yeah,
and practice this, and the experience of peace.
it'll come.
That's where your conviction will lie.
That's right.
Right? I mean, these concepts only go so far, but
Yeah,
when we use them
yeah,
and we get this experience of peace, then we know we're on the right track.
right. Laura, could you read 9 for us, please?
Sure. Perception derives meaning from relationships. Those you accept are the foundation of your beliefs. The separation is merely another term for a split mind. The ego is the symbol of separation, just as the Holy Spirit is the symbol of peace. What you perceive in others, you are strengthening in yourself. You may let your mind misperceive, but the Holy Spirit lets your mind reinterpret its own misperceptions. Well, we should be looking for the good in everyone then.
Yeah, yeah.
Or it reminds me of the saying, like, if you spot it, you got it, right? So if I see something in someone else that I don't like,
Mhm.
that's because I don't like it about me. So it's a mirror back to me. Yeah, I mean, the ego is all about separation. And I was just thinking, Jen, about your comments too, about this last paragraph about time and war being part of the ego as well. And that kind, because it always creates that sense of urgency, like you were saying, that like, look, I can have peace with God, but I really got to paint my kitchen now. Like Lydia was saying last week about projects, like when I get close to my next, little shift, then I suddenly like, and God is eternal. I can do that whenever, but if I don't do this driveway, I got to focus on that. And it's just funny how those things, I think I shared last week, how it's just been a lot of crazy stuff, really busy. And I'm like, I can't believe it's already lunchtime. I didn't do my lesson yet, kind of thing. And I'm like, must be close to a shift. Because the ego's like, no, Laura, do this, do that. So
that's great.
Really good, really good. It's great that you recognize it.
So
and all oh, sorry, go ahead, Connie.
Go ahead. I didn't know.
I was thinking of something I saw with Ken Wapnick over the past week, and he's so chill about it. He's just like, just recognize it. You don't have to do anything else. Just don't get all like, oh, I have to stop it, or I'm afraid of love. He's just like, just observe it, right? So like for forgiveness, what's the thing about forgiveness? It just waits and judges not, just patiently looks and judges. I'm not saying it all right, but so that's it. Like, oh, I would rather paint my kitchen than, study with God. How interesting. Yeah. And just kind of go on.
Yeah, great.
I was just going to say the sentence, perception derives meaning from relationships, and those you accept are the foundations of your beliefs, speak to what I said earlier about, from childhood or from an early age. That's what we're doing. It's the key relationships we develop, we perceive, and they're the foundation of everything we have. And the beliefs are all from ego.
Right.
And yet with sentence 5, what you perceive in others, you're strengthening in yourself. If we perceive with Holy Spirit the beauty in other people and their strength and their being, just their aliveness is of God. If we perceive that, or the power of their choice, any of the qualities that God has given us, if we see them in another, we strengthen it in ourselves. So it works both ways.
So this reinterpretation, one place in the course that's really good at looking in that is the first section in chapter 12, where he says, fear, you've got to get in touch with the spirit. It's always going on.
Yeah.
But if that's all that you do, you've just actually taken a step backwards. What we need to do is give the fear to the Holy Spirit, and he reinterprets fear as a call for love instead of a defense against love.
Right.
Yeah. That's where, like Ken Wapnick always said, defenses do what they're meant to do. Right. And so if I'm in the fear, I have to recognize it's a call for love. And it's a call for love that the Holy Spirit has already answered.
And we could say, well, am I at peace and enjoy in painting my kitchen? Or is it going to be better for me to do the other, sit and do a practice? I just wrote a prayer that I put on my wall. That's like, I'll read a little part of it. Praying while dancing, praying while eating pistachios, praying while writing, listening while moving around. You move through me, please. It's like we can be with God no matter what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can. Yeah.
And Laura, I have an excellent painter. He's just incredible. And one day I said to him, I noticed how you were painting that door. You were so exact. He says, painting is meditation.
Well, there you go.
All right.
So,
Reframe it.
So that is a perfect example of how the Holy Spirit can use perception just as much as the ego can.
yep.
Let's see, whose turn would it be? Connie's?
Yeah.
Okay. That was
The
10.
Holy, we're on 10, right?
Yep.
The Holy Spirit is the perfect teacher. He uses only what your mind already understands to teach you that you do not understand it. The Holy, that's what I love about it. I can't get away with it. The Holy Spirit can deal with a reluctant learner without going counter to his mind, because part of it is still for God. Despite the ego's attempts to conceal this part, it is still much stronger than the ego, although the ego does not recognize it. Yeah, I just love that part of God, that I am part of God.
Right.
And always there, even though my ego's always telling me this other stuff.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit recognizes it perfectly because it is his own dwelling place, the place in the mind where he is at home. You are at home there too, because it is a place of peace, and peace is of God. You who are part of God are not at home except in his peace. If peace is eternal, you are at home only in eternity. Yeah, that peace is so, it's like, I'd like to live in that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lately, like this week, I had an experience where I was just doing so many things, and I'm involved in choosing paint colors. And it was like all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm not feeling peace anymore. I'm just so busy running around that I'm not being with the right now that's connected to eternity. And I stopped and I started, reading and getting back to the peace, because it immediately, it feels off balance.
Yeah.
It just feels like I'm away from my true self or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
Right on.
yeah.
That's like Laura was saying, just recognizing it, you'll make the correction.
Yeah. And recognizing it is new. I wouldn't have recognized that 2 years ago, or maybe even a year ago. I don't know. It's like, yeah, just recognizing it is growth in me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always thinking 2/3 of the problem is solved when we recognize we have a problem. The problem isn't out there. Problem is here. 2/3 done. You're over the hill. It's just going to be easy
Right.
to make the correction once we take responsibility for it. Were you going to say something, hon?
So 10.3, the Holy Spirit can deal with a reluctant learner without going counter to his mind, because part of it is still for God. So that's what he developed in that first paragraph. He's saying this: the Holy Spirit understands perception.
Mhm.
He also has knowledge, but he understands we've made perception, and he can use perception
Mhm.
to give us another lesson.
Yeah.
And that's why he's not really opposing anything. He's just saying, you're perceiving something here
Mhm.
that's false.
Mhm.
You can perceive truly
Mhm.
with a miracle, with forgiveness, with the idea of salvation. So it's not opposing us with something that's like, the truth of who you are, and just get over it.
Learn this now.
Right? No, This is, yeah, you're perceiving something. It's just a mistake. You
That's
got an
right.
answer.
And we can be a reluctant learner, and he still knows how to work with us.
That's it.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on that paragraph? Paragraph 10.
Those last two lines, you who are part of God are not at home except in his peace. If peace is eternal, you're at home only in eternity. Reminds me of a couple of lines in chapter 8, which says, no one created by God can find joy in anything except the eternal. This is not because he's deprived of anything else, but because nothing else is worthy of him.
Uh-huh.
Which is like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not, by not having various things and successes or whatever in the world, I'm not being deprived of anything, because all that stuff isn't worthy of me, because I'm just actually eternal as a part of God.
Yeah.
That's a completely different way of looking at it, as from I'm being like taken out of having joy in various things in the world, and it's totally flipping it, saying, well, you don't need that, because that's well, you're well above all that stuff. Yeah.
So I just was thinking, how do we access the eternal is a question that's come up in some other work that I'm doing. And I thought just now, Eric, with what you were sharing, I was thinking, what if I got up every morning and said, okay, how am I going to access the eternal today? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
the eternal is where peace is, right? So it's,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, right here in one of the paragraphs, oh, there we go. It's at the end of 6. It says the only aspect of time that is eternal is now. So being in the holy instant, being quiet for just a fraction of a minute will bring you into a view of eternity, an experience, a little touch of it.
You know, that's always, and eternity can be related, because if we realize the Holy Spirit is always there, always there with the correction for my wrong-mindedness or my misperception, that can morph into the eternity, because his answer is right now.
That's great.
And it's always there.
So it's this little tiny piece of time called the holy instant, and it's always.
And it just and just standing in there.
That's
you know,
good.
what Connie said, this major construct in the workbook of response to temptation, that throughout the day, when we're upset, our emotions has our mind really concentrated,
Focused
really
on
focused.
somebody's wrong.
Yeah, but he can take that concentration and say, here, put it on something that will work. What you really want is peace.
Yeah.
It was a great time to practice.
It's the perfect time. So
And living
in, go ahead.
I was going to say, living in Sedona, you must have a lot of access, because I notice sometimes I'll look at the mountain and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel this peace over me. It's like access, you know, and there's so many places in Sedona. And I have to admit, Laura, when I look at that picture you put up on your screen of the green and the water, I feel access to the moment, to now, and peace. Yeah. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
I think the reason that I enjoy nature so much is because I don't judge anything. I don't want to deadhead that, move this plant there, do any of that kind of stuff. I'm just enjoying it for the way it is. And I really am trying to translate that into other aspects of my life. But I think this non-judgment stuff is really where it's at.
That's where it's
difficult as it is.
I don't have to judge.
You're on 11, honey.
Okay. The ego made the world as it perceives it, but the Holy Spirit, the reinterpreter of what the ego made, sees the world as a teaching device for bringing you home. So it's not the eternity or the one-mindedness directly. That the truth of who we are animates our perceptions, but it's this correction that's going on that brings us to eternity. So correcting it is different than just the truth of who I am, right? So the ego made the world as it perceives it, but the Holy Spirit, the reinterpreter of what the ego made, sees the world as a teaching device for bringing you home. So what could I have that's a problem?
Exactly.
If it's all a teaching device.
All things are lessons God would have me learn.
The Holy Spirit must perceive time and reinterpret it into the timeless. He must work through opposites because he must work with and for a mind that is in opposition. Correct and learn and be open to learning. You have not made truth, but truth can still set you free. Look as the Holy Spirit looks and understand as he understands. His understanding looks back to God in remembrance of me. He is in communion with God always, and he is a part of you. He is your guide to salvation because he holds the remembrance of things past and to come and brings them to the present. He holds this gladness gently in your mind, asking only that you increase it in his name by sharing it to increase his joy in you. The only thing I want to say about that is there's a couple of prayers in part 2 where it says, Father, should I make you wait longer for you to increase your joy by having it increased in me? So it's not just all about me anymore.
Never.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like I'm part of this greater whole, and that's where I can turn to in that very particular situation. And that correction is much grander than I know, because it's healing the whole of that sonship. It's not just for me. And that idea of that we're this extension of love, that we have all that power. So it's interesting, Jesus says me in this paragraph, because if you remember in our reading recently in the text, he says, I need to be your vigilance in this because you're so confused about freedom and bondage, about joy and pain. You're just too confused. So you need me as the model.
Yeah.
And he's really going to develop that in the next chapter. But we need that. Those holy ones, however we see them, we need to understand they're there.
Right.
You know, that's what Jan and I did when we got married. We invited all of the holy people forever that ever existed, all the people who ever had
happy marriages,
a marriage based, and we invited them all to our weddings, and that's what we still do, where we say, I marry you again today. Like we reaffirm what's really true.
So this was hard for him to accept for a long time, but
I love it when she talks about this. It's really informative.
I took a picture. So this is right after the ceremony. We were alone. We were in a strange place. We met because we lived in different towns, and so I set up a picture so that another diner in the restaurant could take our picture because we had just gotten married. And when I took the picture, when it got developed, there was a light being sitting across the table from him. And he has had a devotion to Holy Mother for a long, long time. And it looks to me like a little Indian lady with a part in her hair and a veil. So it's like the Holy Spirit showed up.
So that when she's ready to walk out the door with total frustration, I mean, that's who she remembers.
I say, Holy Mother came to our wedding. Maybe I better hang in there. Any other thoughts on 11 there?
You know, I just want to say one more thing about if I spot it, I got it.
Okay.
That has to be the first step, right?
Yeah.
But we have to recognize that we can be the free one in that situation and offer the solution.
Yeah.
So that just left to itself, it can tend to say, well, I'm still stuck.
We're both screwed.
We're both screwed, yeah. But just I can be free in that moment
and free the other person.
and help the, yeah.
You know, for me, this whole chapter, this whole section has had not only the Holy Spirit front and center, but our oneness. You know, the truth of who we are is the joined self. The capital S self is the one Son of God. And that's what the Holy Spirit is leading us back to an awareness of. So anything anybody else would like to share?
Actually, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. On 9, where it talks about the Holy Spirit bringing or holds the remembrance of things past and to come and brings them to the present.
Yeah.
Is that he just refocuses you to the present and being in the holy instant, or is there something else by his remembrance of things past and to come?
Well, I can have future anxiety about what's going to happen, and I can have regret about the past. But since the Holy Spirit is in truth and outside of time, he has the answer for that right there in that moment. But so things to come, that's where he says, I place the future in the hands of God. Once you do that, once you put the future in the hands of God.
That's right. That lesson brings us to the present.
Brings us to the present, and then every moment is a holy instant.
Yeah.
But the past regrets is what we have to let go of, because we can heal them right in this moment.
Right.
I just have a wrong idea.
You know, when we read that sentence, I thought also of there's 2 sections way farther on in the course that talk about time as being all done already. And I think this might kind of be an inkling of that.
The little hindrance.
The little hindrance in finding the present.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, something like that.
And Eric had a comment or question.
It was that same line actually that Laura just mentioned. Yeah. He holds the remembrance. Well, he holds the remembrance of things past and to come and brings them to the present. And it's like, I mean, we're always being told there's no past, there's no future, there's only the now. So it's like, well, you just forget the past and the future and you just concentrate on the now. But we can't do that. So he's not trying to do that. He's saying, okay, I hold this, your remembrance of the past and your anticipation of the future, but I change it somehow and I reinterpret it so that you are more focused on the now. So yeah, I don't know if that I'm very clear on that really, but it just seemed to be reassuring really.
Lovely.
So Eric, what you just really quickly, what you just said is the perfect example of the Holy Spirit instantly giving me an answer to something I needed. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, that was one of the objects of the lesson recently, was ask the Holy Spirit to give you assurance that all is healed. That you have some experience from the Holy Spirit that shows you it's all good.
Everything is
you
okay.
can be at peace. You're healed right now, and you experience yourself as healed and at peace.
Right. We can do that.
We can.
And we wish that for you for this upcoming week.